Chapter 1, Miss Sinclair, congratulations. Your permanent residency for Finland has been approved. Would you like to retain your domestic status? Hearing the official's question, I shook my head without hesitation, my tone firm. No, please cancel it for me. The official reminded me, Miss Sinclair, I must inform you that once the cancellation process begins, all your past information and records will be erased. This is irreversible. If you are sure you wish to proceed, please sign here. He handed me a cancellation application. Without a flicker of doubt, I signed my name. I drove aimlessly around the city until the streetlights began to glow. Only then did I steer the car downtown. The giant screen on the World Trade Center was playing highlights from a recently popular couple's reality TV show. While waiting for a green light, a famous clip of Julian Carter's romantic pursuit began to play. The video showed the Architect of the Year awards ceremony. Julian Carter, not yet 30, had just won the highest honor. Yet, at what should have been his moment of triumph, he looked anxious and hurried away. A reporter at the scene, broadcasting live, chased after him, asking why he was leaving in such a rush. Facing the camera, he looked slightly surprised, then shyly explained, "I'm going to propose today. She's always punctual, and if I'm late, the proposal will fail. There will be many more Architect of the Year nights, but a proposal is a once-in-a-lifetime event." What a storybook romance, I'm so shipping them. On the screen, Julian Carter's eyes were resolute, his words firm. His speech made two girls who had stopped on the sidewalk clasp their hands together, their faces alight with envy and excitement. Julian Carter must be head over heels for Serafina Sinclair. This is the Architect of the Year awards, so many industry titans were there, and he just bylayed. That's nothing. The romantic things Julian has done for Serafina are countless. That first stunning glimpse of her at the fashion show when she was 19. After that, he never missed a single one of her runway shows. She once mentioned she liked emeralds, and he spent $700 million at an auction for an entire set of emerald jewelry just to see her smile. They weren't even a couple, then it made so many people online green with envy. How can such an incredible man exist in this world? The sound of a car horn behind me brought me back to reality. The light was green. I drove off, glancing at the retreating backs of the two girls in my rearview mirror. The dim light inside the car cast my expression in shadow. A cold smirk touched my lips. Perhaps marriage truly is the graveyard of love. Once you have it, the magic fades. This man, who had promised to love me for a lifetime, had ultimately broken his vows, playing that classic game of the wife and the mistress behind my back. In online polls asking who was the ideal model husband, Julian Carter ranked first. But even a husband chosen by popular vote couldn't avoid an extramarital affair, keeping some wannabe model on the side. So those nights he claimed sudden inspiration had struck, rushing off to his studio to create, were actually spent entangled with that woman. I felt as if someone was strangling me, pushing me under the sea, suffocating, the cold bone deep. My WhatsApp pinged again with more photos of him, clearly aroused, sent by her. They made me feel a little dazed. Julian Carter had professed his love to me countless times. After rejecting him for the final time, I told him, if you can accept my past, then we can talk about a future. I told him I was an orphan, raised in an acrobatic troupe. The catwalk goddess he saw was just a homeless, unfortunate girl, burdened by an exorbitant contract, with no mind for romance, too afraid of getting hurt to even dare. Julian was even more heartbroken for me after hearing this. He promised, "Don't ever mention the past again. From now on, I will be your shelter and your sky." With a wave of his hand, he paid the massive contract termination fee, setting me free. I remember that day. He held my old contract and said, word by word, "Trust me, the future will be even better." It was at that moment that the defenses around my heart completely crumbled, and I fell head over heels in love with him. He couldn't go 3 sentences in a conversation without mentioning me, constantly followed my updates, invested in advertising for me, and pulled in sponsors. Everyone said he was completely besotted with me, my #1 fan. On our wedding day at Goodwood Manor, his eyes brimmed with tenderness. That deep affection in his gaze gave me the illusion that, in his heart, I was everything. He said the proudest achievement of his life was marrying me, and if he ever betrayed his loyalty and commitment, he should be punished by losing his greatest love forever. Now, It seemed his punishment was about to come true. I would change my identity and leave forever, disappearing completely from his world. Unconsciously, my eyes reddened. I drove to the TV station to film today's segment of the reality show. As soon as I reached the backstage area, Julian pulled me into a tight embrace. "I called you, but you didn't answer. I told you I'd drive you tonight. Why didn't you listen? You're going to worry your hubby to death." Saying this, he looked down at me and noticed my pale face and red-rimmed eyes. Chapter 2, his heart instantly ached with tenderness. He frowned, gently lifting her face, and asked softly, "Tell your hubby, did some fool bully you? Hubby will sort them out for you." She casually moved his hand away, her voice calm. "No, it's just my eyes watering from the wind. The car window was open when I was driving earlier." Hearing her explanation, Julian's tightly furrowed brow gradually relaxed. His gaze was full of tenderness as he gently tucked a stray strand of hair behind her ear, like a man deeply in love. But she was also acutely aware that the man before her had already split his heart in two, with two women residing within. After they finished their makeup and styling in the dressing room, she received photos from Zara Shaw. Inside an open Louis Vuitton trunk, empty condom wrappers were piled high. "Wow, we've gone through so many already. Oh, I forgot the main point. He stopped using them now. Our baby will definitely be gorgeous." She looked down to hide the turmoil within, but the hand holding her phone trembled uncontrollably. Serafina Sinclair turned off the screen, feeling as if a nerve in her brain had been brutally snapped, leaving her almost breathless. She struggled to shift her gaze to him. Julian seemed to notice, offering her a familiar smile. The smile that once brought her comfort now seemed exceptionally ironic. Their marriage was like a rotten apple, eaten hollow from the inside by worms, with only a polished facade remaining. She had long been tightly bound by the pain of betrayal. In the observation room, the camera didn't often focus on the guest commentators. She glanced sideways at Julian and noticed him frequently peeking at his phone, his fingers constantly scrolling up and down, his eyes tinged with a feverish red. That woman must have sent him some more risque photos. She silently watched his little movements, casually flicking her hair to hide her moist eyes. It was already 1 in the morning when the recording finished. Julian quickly walked over to her, looking anxious. "Darling, inspiration just struck. Sorry, I can't go home with you. I need to go to the office first." He helped Serafina arrange her thick, long hair, then pulled her into another tight hug. "Sweetheart, I hate to be apart from you. You have to understand, be careful on your way home." Serafina's eyes twitched slightly. Lying had become second nature to him now. The man who had pursued her relentlessly despite countless rejections, who had once told her with tear-filled eyes, "You're the only one I'll ever love. I don't want anyone but you," was now saying he couldn't bear to part, yet was turning around to find another woman. Before she could speak, Julian's phone buzzed. He released her, glanced at the message, and then drove off in a hurry. She stood frozen in place, the night wind blowing around her, watching HH's car until it disappeared from sight. Only then did she murmur, "I will never forgive you." She would leave, disappear completely from his world as her response to his infidelity. Serafina Sinclair returned home and immediately took a shower, trying to wash away the gloom of the day. She had just put on her bathrobe and walked into the bedroom when her phone chimed with a new video. In the video, Zara Shaw was blindfolded with a tie identical to the one Julian had worn tonight. She was wearing a sexy, see-through outfit, a pair of puppy ears on her head, and a black collar around her fair neck, crawling slowly on the bed as if lost. Her ample curves trembled slightly with her movements, her voice as melodious as a nightingale's. "Master, come and punish me." Soon, a familiar male figure pounced, like a hungry wolf. Serafina Sinclair forcefully swiped the screen, closing WhatsApp. She tried to take deep breaths to ease the tightness in her chest. She had known about their relationship for a long time and thought she had grown accustomed to these lurid scenes. But she had underestimated the impact of the video. It felt as if she were submerged in seawater, a salty, cold sensation rapidly spreading through her. She couldn't sleep. She sat quietly on the bed, her eyes open until dawn. Her phone started vibrating again. Zara Shaw had sent her a message. "He's got so much stamina, my back was nearly broken last night. I heard your birthday is coming up. I have a surprise for you. Sent you the location. Be there at 3 in the afternoon, sharp." Serafina Sinclair's hand tightened around her phone as if to crush it. Julian Carter returned home to see Serafina Sinclair sitting on the edge of the bed, her eyes bloodshot, her phone lying on the floor, having been dropped. His heart clenched. He quickly knelt by her feet, his voice cautious. "Sweetheart, what's wrong? Why are your eyes so red? Why are your hands and feet so cold?" He reached out and took her hands, gently rubbing them. Serafina Sinclair finally seemed to come to her senses. She tried to force a smile, but found it difficult. She lowered her head to avoid his gaze, her voice hoarse. "I watched a horror movie. Didn't sleep all night as a result." Chapter 3. Julian Carter hugged her, his heart aching. "Don't watch them anymore. Hubby was so scared for you." She was about to speak when the phone rang. "Mr. Carter, the venue setup you booked is complete." A flash of panic crossed his face. "You've got the wrong number." Seeing her expression remain unchanged, as if she hadn't heard the call, Julian Carter breathed a sigh of relief. He feigned annoyance. "My phone number seems to have been leaked recently. I keep getting all sorts of strange calls." She watched his performance with cold eyes, barely managing a twitch of her lips. "Sweetheart, you didn't sleep well last night. I'll have the driver take you for a spa day to relax." Serafina Sinclair just looked at him faintly, without responding. The man, however, took her silence as agreement. Seeing her pack her things to leave, Julian Carter also eagerly drove away. She watched the car's GPS tracker, its final destination, a luxury hotel in Serene Hills, identical to the location Zara Shaw had sent her. In an instant, she understood everything. Her eyes turned icy. Julian Carter had lied to her again. This was originally the place Julian Carter had booked for her birthday, but he had suddenly changed his mind a few days ago. "Sweetheart, a young couple wants to get engaged there, and they contacted me. It seems he really loves the girl and wants to give her the most perfect proposal. But darling, if you don't agree, I won't let them have it." However, there was no young couple. It was all a ruse to make her give up the venue for Zara Shaw. He had calculated that she would be soft-hearted, unwilling to disappoint a couple in love. A dull ache spread through Serafina Sinclair's heart, but more than pain, it was disappointment in this man. He had deceived her again. She let out a bitter laugh. How many more things was he hiding from her? At 3 in the afternoon, Zara Shaw punctually sent her another message. "Take the hotel's scenic elevator down from the top floor. You'll see a different kind of view. Tried it for you, it's super beautiful." Inside the scenic elevator, Serafina Sinclair's view was a sea of flowers. Romantic pinks, passionate reds, pure whites, elegant blues, a path paved with roses. By her estimate, this ocean of flowers was at least 10 feet high. In the center of the venue was a 3-dimensional heart made of roses, along with Zara Shaw's name. As the elevator slowly descended, she saw a figure draped in a snow-white wedding gown walking from the flower path towards the center of the venue. Wasn't that Zara Shaw? Serafina Sinclair's gaze was uncontrollably drawn to the scene as Zara Shaw sent another message. "So what if it was designed for you? One tear from me, and it became the scene of his proposal to me. Be smart and make way, won't you? You're nearly 30. It's not very polite for him to always be talking about your things, your wishes. Since your surname is Sinclair, from now on I'll just call you Old Lady Sinclair, mutton dressed as lamb." Zara Shaw started a live stream of this romantic proposal scene, immediately attracting a large crowd of onlookers. Zara Shaw, dressed in a magnificent wedding gown, appeared before the camera, sharing her joy at being proposed to by her lover. The live comments section filled with blessings and words of envy for their storybook romance. Zara Shaw held a bouquet, her waist encircled by a large hand. The owner of the hand wasn't in the shot, but a scar on his thumb allowed Serafina Sinclair to recognize it instantly. It was Julian Carter's hand. How ironic, she thought. That scar was from when he'd cut himself peeling fruit for her, and now it served as damning evidence of Julian Carter's betrayal. Tears streamed uncontrollably down Serafina Sinclair's face. Her husband was now proposing to another woman. Where did that leave her? A cast-off wife? Soon, a comment popped up. "This design looks a lot like Mr. Carter's style." It couldn't be his work, could it? "That's right, it's his creation," Zara Shaw said in the live stream, her eyes full of sweetness. "Wow, how can I hire him? Didn't Mr. Carter say he'd only ever design venues for his wife?" A triumphant glint flashed in Zara Shaw's eyes. "You just need a husband who loves you enough." Zara Shaw turned her back to the hotel, a meaningful smile on her face. She asked in a saccharine voice, "Hubby, am I the most beautiful bride-to-be? Am I the one you love the most?" Although the man wasn't in the frame, Serafina Sinclair heard his indulgent laughter. "Zara, my baby, is the most beautiful. Today is the day I'm proposing to you. Who else could I love?" But Zara Shaw wasn't satisfied with this ambiguous answer, pressing Julian Carter for a clear response. All right, I'll say it. The woman I love most is Zara Shaw. Other women are just passers-by." Zara Shaw glanced towards the hotel building, her eyes full of playful mockery. Her lips moved, silently mouthing to the camera, "He's mine." The people in the live stream thought Zara Shaw was just showing off her love, but Serafina Sinclair knew clearly that Zara Shaw was declaring her sovereignty to her. As his wife, how could she not tell that his words were heartfelt? She collapsed onto the lobby sofa, tears blurring her vision. Her spine felt as if ice shards had seeped into it, the pain leaving her utterly broken. Chapter 4, perhaps driven by some unknown emotion, Serafina Sinclair dialed Julian Carter's number. The call went unanswered. Still unwilling to give up, she dialed several more times. Listening to the busy tone from her phone, she let out a bitter laugh. Julian Carter, who had once sworn his undying love for her, now called her a passerby. In the past, if she merely said she wanted to see him, he would immediately drop whatever he was doing and rush to her side. Now, all one could say was that people's hearts change easily. She had completely lost all hope in him. Those feelings of unwillingness and the tangle of love and hate also dissipated at this moment. She felt relieved that she was about to leave. She wished Julian Carter to never see her again for the rest of his life. Serafina Sinclair started to get up, but she felt a sudden, sharp pain in her lower abdomen, and a warm liquid trickled down her thigh. Her vision went black, and she only heard someone shouting, "Oh no, someone's fainted. You have signs of a threatened miscarriage." Fortunately, the baby was saved. Avoid excessive emotional fluctuations during pregnancy. Serafina Sinclair remembered the doctor's advice, her eyes filled with bewilderment. It was as if fate was playing a colossal joke on her. She returned home that night and looked at the message Julian Carter had sent. "Sweetheart, I was incredibly busy today, so I didn't return your call. I won't be able to finish up tonight, so I won't be coming home." She knew these were all Julian Carter's lies. She should have exposed them, questioned him, but she didn't care anymore. There were more important things to do now. She contacted a real estate agent to sell all the properties under her name, including the sensational villa Julian Carter had designed for her, named Love Nest. All the jewelry and designer items he had given her were listed on a consignment marketplace. Since the prices were generally lower than market value, they were quickly snapped up by buyers. The photo albums, filled with memories of their love, were fed into a shredder, page by page, reduced to dust. She wanted nothing that Julian Carter had given her. Erasing all traces of their past was her way of saying goodbye to what they once had. The next day at noon, as she was looking at buyer orders on her phone, the bedroom door was flung open. Julian Carter strode towards her, pulling her into his arms, his voice trembling slightly. "Sweetheart, if you're angry because I didn't answer your calls, you can hit me, curse me, but why did you put the Love Nest up for sale? That's the house I designed for you with my own hands. Every part of it is my love for you. Are you selling it because you don't want me anymore, because you want to leave me?" She gently pushed him away, freeing herself from his embrace. She looked intently into his eyes, which were full of sorrow, like a puppy about to be abandoned. She found it laughable. He would be sad if she left him, if she didn't love him anymore, so why did he do those things that broke her heart? If it were before, she would have softened completely, agreed to anything he asked. But now, she just quietly watched the man with reddened eyes and said calmly, "You're overthinking it. I just don't like it anymore. I've already married you, how could I run away?" Inside, however, she was sneering. "So you do realize I don't want you anymore. Then why do you still cheat on the side? Are you so full at home that even crap outside smells good now? Or do you think you've hidden it so well you can deceive everyone? Hubby, you love me so much, why don't you design another house for me?" For now, she didn't want to alert him, so she had to lie, claiming she sold the old house simply because she didn't like it anymore. As expected, Julian Carter stopped fussing about the Love Nest. He declared confidently, "Sweetheart, I guarantee you'll be satisfied with the design of the new villa." He was this upset merely sensing she might leave. She really looked forward to seeing how he would lose his mind when he found out she had disappeared completely. She suppressed the revulsion in her heart and patiently coaxed him. Only after hearing her repeatedly promise that she wouldn't leave him did Julian Carter's uneasy heart gradually calm down. Yet Julian Carter still felt a vague sense of unease. He kept telling himself not to be paranoid. Ninny had married him, they would be happy for a lifetime. All he had to do now was not reveal any slip-ups. He had always done so well, there wouldn't be any problems. He must be too sensitive. Yes, he must be too sensitive. 2 days later, Serafina Sinclair went to the obstetrician again to check on the fetus. Fortunately, everything was normal. The doctor had warned her last time that, given her physical condition, an abortion was not recommended. This might be her only child in this lifetime. So, she would treasure this little angel, but it would be hers alone. She sat on a hospital bench, quietly stroking her still flat abdomen. Not far away, Zara Shaw, looking as if she had no bones, emerged from the obstetrics department clinging to Julian Carter's arm. Perhaps because Serafina was wearing a mask and hat, neither of them recognized her. Zara Shaw looked dejected. "Darn it, I really thought I was pregnant. I was so excited, and it all turned out to be for nothing." "What do you mean, false pregnancy?" "I really had morning sickness." Seeing Julian Carter trying hard to suppress a laugh, Zara Shaw fumed, pummeling his chest with her little fists. Chapter 5, from Serafina Sinclair's perspective, it was clearly a harmonious scene of her playfully fussing and him smiling indulgently. She gently closed her eyes and shook her head slightly. If that man weren't her husband, it would have been even more perfect. Hubby must not have been working hard enough lately. He suddenly swept the woman in his arms off her feet, his voice raspy as he whispered in Zara Shaw's ear, "Come on, hubby's taking his baby home to make a little baby." "You're awful." Zara Shaw's coquettish laughter echoed in the hallway. She lowered her head, a faint smile playing on her lips. For the past few years, she had been busy with her career and had no plans for children. Julian Carter said he wasn't in a hurry, but she suspected his heart felt otherwise. Well then, before she left, she would give him 2 more parting gifts. This little angel had arrived unexpectedly, but every angel deserves to live in a healthy, loving family. If the baby's home could only maintain a facade of affection, then perhaps it was truly better not to have it at all. After Serafina Sinclair returned to the villa, she was consulting a professional nutritionist about prenatal dietary planning. Just then, a live stream notification from Zara Shaw popped up. Since the live proposal, Zara Shaw had gained a massive following, becoming a fairly well-known influencer. As soon as she went live, her viewer count shot up to 100,000. This time, the live stream was from her home. Zara Shaw wore a sexy bandeau top with heavily ripped jeans and high top boots, striking a pose for the camera. She started with her usual flirtatious and glamorous smile, swaying her hips as she interacted with her fans in the live stream. "Babies, isn't my catwalk just as good as a professional model's?" After receiving approval from her watching fans, Zara Shaw smiled with satisfaction. One of the scrolling comments caught her attention. "There's folic acid on the table. Is there a little baby on the way?" A blush crept onto Zara Shaw's face. "Oh, you guys have such sharp eyes, we're trying to conceive. But I've been using a secret weapon lately, so I believe there'll be good news soon." The fans were all curious. "What secret weapon?" "I've been doing some special self-care routines lately. Your brother-in-law is so dominant and wild, every time he leaves me sore and weak-kneed." The fans shrieked, "Is this something we can listen to? Talking bad about me again, Julian Carter's voice came through. The man's voice, warm yet tinged with a devilish charm, left the online audience captivated, clamoring for their brother-in-law to appear on camera. "No way, he's for my eyes only. So possessive, is there any part of me you haven't seen? Still haven't had enough." The atmosphere in the live stream became even more lively, with comments exclaiming this wasn't a ride to kindergarten. It was so exciting, they loved it. Hearing his teasing, Zara Shaw shot him a seductive glance, pretending to hit the man off camera, but was instead pulled forcefully into his embrace. Julian Carter's long, well-defined hand appeared in the shot, sending the viewers into a frenzy, calling it divine. Among the countless complimentary comments, one suddenly popped up. "That hand looks familiar, And the voice is very familiar too. Can't remember where I've heard it. Soon, this comment was buried under new ones. Zara Shah was pulled out of the live camera frame by him, but their intimately intertwined sounds couldn't be contained, the man's sexy, low moans audible. Baby wearing a thong? You're playing with fire. The viewers went completely wild, screaming and asking, what is it that we, your family, can't see? When Serafina Sinclair saw Zara Shah again, her eyes were sultry and alluring, her lips crimson and moist. It was all self-explanatory. Zara Shah panted coquettishly, babies, gotta end the stream for today. Your brother-in-law has been driven wild by me. Serafina Sinclair's heart was already numb to the core. She merely watched the entire live stream with a blank expression, incidentally recording and saving it. These scenes were now just child's play to her, unable to cause even a ripple in her heart. 3 hours later, Zara Shah sent new photos. A pair of man's large hands were holding a woman's perfectly white, rounded toes, painting her nails a vivid red. Visually, it was quite aesthetically pleasing. Hubby says my feet go best with red. The ultimate contrast of pale white and red is a work of art. Every time I hook him with my toes, he can't control himself. Old lady Sinclair, hubby told me your toes are all deformed from high heels. He has zero desire for them. Didn't you know? He has a serious foot fetish. Reading through Zara Shah's messages, for a moment she felt this woman was both ignorant and pathetic. She gripped her phone tightly, her knuckles white, refusing to let go. Perhaps Zara Shah thought this display of affection would make Serafina Sinclair feel pain and sorrow. She admitted it had worked at first, but after the grief came her awakening. Each of Zara Shah's provocations refreshed her understanding of Julian Carter. She used to think he was merely captivated by some fling, but looking at it now, perhaps she had never truly seen through the man's essential nature. Love is pure. It is about tolerance and understanding, not using a lover's pain as fodder for flirting with other women. Chapter 6, these deformed feet had won her glory on the tea stage. They were never meant to be a tool to please men, nor was she a woman who existed to satisfy a man's fetish. Julian Carter, you are far worse than I imagined. After watching Zara Shah's live stream that afternoon, she had assumed Julian Carter would make an excuse and not come home tonight. Unexpectedly, he returned home before 9 in the evening. Perhaps it was a man's intuition. Somehow, he had declined Zara Shah's request to stay over. He had indeed spent too little time with Ninny recently. He smiled shyly and innocently, holding a bouquet of her favorite sunflowers, easily pulling the tall woman into his embrace. The moment their eyes met, Serafina Sinclair felt as if she had returned to the past, to the 19-year-old boy who had cherished her like a treasure. During the years Julian Carter pursued her, she had repeatedly refused the roses he sent. She never expected that one day he would send sunflowers. At that moment, she had stood completely stunned. Actually, she didn't like expensive, delicate roses. She preferred those vibrant flowers that grew towards the sun, full of wildness and vitality. He had said, I noticed. There were many bouquets backstage, but your gaze lingered on the sunflowers for a few extra seconds. My eyes see no one else, you are everywhere. The meaning of sunflowers is the same as my heart's. Her heart was touched by the man who had noticed this tiny detail, and for the first time, she accepted his flowers. She still remembered his sigh of relief, his and self-muttering. I knew you weren't refusing my flowers because you didn't like me. It must have been that I was sending the wrong ones. She had been amused by his tongue twister-like soliloquy. But in her memory, that innocent boy was long gone. The moment she leaned against his chest, she smelled the familiar citrus scent. Fresh with a hint of tartness, it was Nile Garden, her usual perfume. Her pupils trembled, a sarcastic smile playing on her lips. If it weren't for Zara Shah, perhaps she would never have discovered this man had betrayed her. He hid it too well. After spending half the day dallying with Zara Shah, there was no other scent on him, meaning he had Zara use the same perfume as her. So be it. He was trying so hard to cover it up. She should play along and finish this act of a loving couple. Serafina Sinclair spoke calmly, I'm pregnant. A light flashed in Julian Carter's eyes, and he exclaimed excitedly, Really? Sweetheart. His mouth split into a wide grin, and he suddenly jumped up, losing his usual gentlemanly elegance, as excited as a young lad, completely immersed in the joy of impending fatherhood. His excitement and joy didn't seem feigned. It seemed he would be a good father who loved his child. Yet this man had also been trying to conceive with another woman these past days. It seemed he would soon have other children. She flicked her eyelids down to hide the sourness in her heart. Relying on her understanding of Julian Carter's personality, she took out 2 documents she had prepared long ago: a divorce agreement and a voluntary waiver of custody rights. Serafina Sinclair flipped directly to the signature page at the end, looking at him with deep affection. "Hubby, I've taken a liking to 2 new brands. They seem to have a lot of potential. Could you help me acquire them?" In this moment of joy, he indeed did not suspect her ulterior motives and decisively signed his name on both documents. "Sweetheart, what's this? Even if you wanted the stars from the sky, hubby could buy them for you. For your birthday, I was planning to buy you a small island." Just as he was speaking animatedly, his phone rang. He saw the caller ID, his brow furrowed, and he decisively hung up. Seeing he didn't answer, the caller seemed determined, dialing again and again. Seeing that her goal had been achieved, there was no need for her to continue feigning marital bliss and the joy of parenthood with Julian Carter. She even felt somewhat fortunate that Zara Shaw had called. Otherwise, she wouldn't have known how to continue the act. Serafina Sinclair gently tugged his sleeve, coaxing softly, "Answer the phone. What if it's something important?" Only then did he reluctantly walk to a corner of the living room and answer the call, his voice cold. "What is it?" Loud music and a woman's tearful, drunken voice came from the other end. "Hubby, I've been drugged at a bar. I'm so hot all over, come save me, some men keep pulling at me. So dizzy, so scared." Whatever was said on the other end, Julian Carter was visibly flustered, beads of sweat appearing on his forehead. "Sweetheart, I have an emergency and need to go out." With that, he turned and left without a backward glance. She stood at the doorway watching him get into the car until it disappeared into the night. A new message popped up on Serafina Sinclair's WhatsApp. "Old Lady Sinclair, so what if he came home? A little trick, a few tears, and he comes running to me. What's the point of you still clinging to the empty title of Mrs. Carter?" Chapter 7, seeing your fans still shipping you too. I could die laughing. If I were you, I'd be too ashamed to show my face. Serafina Sinclair turned off her phone. Her eyes, hidden in the darkness, betrayed no emotion. Julian Carter didn't return that night, nor did he show any signs of coming back for several days. In the past, she would have called to ask what had happened, but now she did nothing. He didn't seem to notice her unusual behavior either. She tugged at the corner of her lips. Zara Shaw would keep her updated on Julian Carter's whereabouts. There was no need for her to call. He was probably so lost in the beauty's company that he'd lost track of the days. It was almost over. She subconsciously caressed the wedding ring on her finger. She had one last thing to do. She sent Julian Carter a message. "Julian, come with me to Goodwood Manor one more time." Once again, they came to this fairytale town, the place where she and Julian Carter had held their wedding. Their marriage began here. It should end here too. Arriving at the church, perhaps moved by the familiar surroundings, her usually dry eyes welled up again. A pair of hands carefully wiped the corners of her eyes, draping a shawl over her shoulders. "Sweetheart, why are you crying?" This time, she didn't resist or push away, obediently accepting his kindness and resting her head on his chest. "Julian, do you still remember the vows you made here?" Recalling their wedding scene, his eyes softened with tenderness as he spoke of the various details of the ceremony. "I will never forget that day for the rest of my life. I swore that I would make you happy for a lifetime, that you would be the only one in my heart forever." He spoke with genuine emotion. Serafina Sinclair slightly lowered her eyelids, a sarcastic smile playing on her lips. "And if you didn't keep your promise?" After a moment of silence, he answered in a low voice, "I would lose my greatest love forever." "Sweetheart, don't worry, that day will never come. I only love you. I wouldn't even glance at another woman." Listening to his solemn vows, her heart felt nothing. Men's words were always deceptive, spoken as if they were true. It was he who had hurt her so deeply. All the humiliation and misfortune in her life paled in comparison to the pain he had brought her. They walked hand in hand along the country path, enjoying this rare moment of tranquility. Julian Carter's phone buzzed, shattering the brief peace. He impatiently opened the notification. Seeing the photo Zara Shaw had sent, his breathing quickened. At the same time, she also received a message from Zara. "You won't believe it. I send one picture, and he'll leave you immediately." Turning off her phone, she clearly sensed his mind was no longer there. She smiled gently and considerately. "Something to take care of?" Julian Carter hesitated for a moment, then shook his head. He didn't know why, but a voice inside him told him he couldn't leave Serafina Sinclair right now. She found an excuse for him. "Is it a new file from the company? Go back to the hotel and handle it. I'll just wander around. Remember to pick me up later." Julian Carter felt uneasy. He didn't want to go. He had a gut feeling that if he left, she would leave too. But her eyes were full of tenderness, and she was stroking her still flat abdomen. His unease momentarily subsided. He thought to himself, just a little while, it won't matter. Ninny is carrying his child now, where could she go? As he was about to leave, she called out to Julian Carter, "Don't forget the road you took to get here." He turned back and smiled at her. "How could I forget, my little lost lamb?" Watching him walk away, she smiled desolately, tears streaming down her face. The road he took when he was 19, did he truly remember it now? A moment later, a man walked over. "Miss Sinclair, all your domestic information has been completely deregistered. Here is your new identification. Serafina Sinclair has vanished from this world. You can board the ship at the pier to Finland." Her phone screen lit up again. Zara Shaw had sent her a new message. "Old Lady Sinclair, I just sent a picture of myself in my underwear, and hubby ditched you to come find me at the hotel. Tell me, how can I be so irresistible? Be smart and get out of my and hubby's love life." This wasn't the first time Zara Shaw had provoked her, but this was the first time she replied. "Congratulations, your wish is granted." She looked up at the man before her and handed him her phone directly. "Please mail this phone and let her back to the country. Make sure Julian Carter signs for it personally." She was never a woman who would let others bully her. Julian Carter would pay the price for the humiliation and pain Zara Shaw had inflicted upon her. She and her child would leave him forever. Today was their farewell. She wanted him to regret forever that, for a moment of pleasure, he had lost his wife and child. After giving clear instructions, she boarded the cruise ship. On the deck, the moment she removed her ruby wedding ring, she suddenly remembered Zara Shaw's words. "The ultimate red and white is art." She curled her lips. Perhaps Julian Carter's preferences had never changed, but it no longer had anything to do with her. The cruise ship sailed through the narrow strait, the light no longer flickering, but filled with sunshine. Chapter 8 in the hotel room. Julian Carter pinched Zara Shaw's chin, wondering if he should replace this disobedient woman. His face was dark as he looked at Zara. "Didn't I tell you not to contact me casually once we got to Norway?" Seeing his expression, Zara Shaw showed no fear. She shrugged her shoulders, and her bathrobe slipped off, revealing a red bikini underneath. She grabbed his hand, placed it on her body, and pressed herself against him, her voice soft and sticky. "I'm sorry, I just missed you too much. Just this once, never again." Looking up and seeing his gaze deepen, Zara Shaw licked his Adam's apple with the tip of her tongue and, as she wished, was carried to the bed by him. Everything proceeded naturally. With a low grunt from Julian Carter, his entanglement with Zara Shaw ended. For some reason, he felt an inexplicable panic in his heart. Glancing at the time, he quickly showered and got ready to leave. He had already been delayed for over an hour. Ninny must be waiting anxiously. The thought of Ninny carrying their child softened his heart, and a smile involuntarily played on his lips. He had been busy indulging Zara Shaw's whims lately, and had indeed neglected Ninny a bit. They say pregnant women are the most sensitive, and he didn't want to make her angry. From now on, he planned to focus solely on spending time with Ninny in Norway. After all, Zara Shaw was just a diversion to him. How could she compare to his wife? Zara Shaw saw his anxious look and knew he was going to find Serafina Sinclair. She lifted her slender leg and wrapped it around him. "Hubby, don't go. I don't know anyone in Norway. I can only rely on you. Stay and keep me company." But seeing his dark face and furrowed brow, Zara Shaw wisely shut up, gave him a demure kiss on the cheek, and reluctantly let him go. When Julian Carter drove back, he couldn't find Serafina Sinclair anywhere. He thought she was angry, having a tantrum, deliberately hiding from him. He smiled and sent her a message. "Sweetheart, I'm sorry I'm late. It's okay to be angry, just don't hide. I'll worry if I can't find you." But a long time passed with no reply to his message, and his calls went unanswered. He finally panicked. He shouted her name aloud where he stood, but only the cold wind answered. A thought struck him like a thunderbolt. She had left. She didn't want him anymore. He quickly dismissed this idea. She didn't know anyone here, and she was pregnant. How could she leave him? She must be testing him. Yes, that must be it. He tried to calm himself down and, with a heart full of dread, asked passers-by if anyone had seen her. But they just shook their heads blankly. Cold sweat began to break out on his back, and he slumped down by the roadside. A smile uglier than a grimace stretched his lips. "Ninny, please, don't scare me. I was wrong. You can hit me, punish me, anything. Just don't torture me like this." Suddenly, he received a message from Serafina Sinclair. "I've gone back to our home country first." Seeing this, Julian Carter's suspended heart finally settled. Ninny had just gone back home in a huff. She hadn't left him. He really had been in the wrong this time. He had to go back immediately, see Ninny at once, and soothe her anger. Julian Carter took the earliest flight back. The moment he got off the plane, he rushed home. But there was still no sign of Serafina Sinclair in the house. He asked the maid, "Has Madam returned?" "No, she hasn't." The maid looked puzzled. "Mr. Carter, hasn't Madam been with you all this time?" He waved his hand irritably, signaling the maid to leave. Chapter 9. Could Ninny still be angry? He loosened his tie and walked into the bedroom, intending to call Serafina Sinclair's close friends in the country to ask about her whereabouts. But an inadvertent glance made his phone clatter to the floor. Ninny's room, had it always been like this? No, that wasn't right. Where were the jewels he had given her? Why was the walk-in closet completely empty? He accidentally knocked over a photo album. The opened album was empty. Where had all their photos gone? The unease surged back into his heart. His expression grim, he dialed his secretary's number. "Within 1 hour, I want a complete record of Madam's movements for the past month. Where she went, any recent abnormalities, find out everything." Hanging up the phone, he pinched the bridge of his nose, lost in thought. What had gone wrong? He had always been so careful. Could Ninny have really discovered his affair? Soon, his suspicions were confirmed. The reality show they had filmed together was playing on TV. The camera captured a shot of Serafina Sinclair looking at him, her eyes moist. He tried hard to recall what he had been doing at that moment. His pupils suddenly trembled. At that time, he had been exchanging flirtatious messages with Zara Shaw, and he had even been with her that night. The clearer the memory, the more distinct the details. When she had first arrived at the recording studio that day, her eyes had also been red. Julian Carter sank to the carpet in disbelief. How could this be? Had she already sensed something was wrong back then? But she had endured it all without a word, and now she had left so decisively, taking their unborn child with her. How could she be so heartless? The secretary sent over surveillance footage of Serafina Sinclair from recent weeks. A segment from outside the obstetrics department of a hospital made his hand, holding the phone, tremble uncontrollably. The woman sitting on the bench, was that his Ninny? And those things he and Zara Shaw had said, had she heard everything? At that time, she was carrying their child. How much pain her heart must have been in. He felt a wave of dizziness, his heart constricted with a sudden, sharp clench, and a sharp pain made it difficult for him to breathe. How could this be? Just then, the maid's voice came. "Sir, there's an International Express package for you." He dazedly opened it. It was a phone and a letter. Tearing open the envelope, his eyes widened abruptly. This was Ninny's handwriting. "Julian Carter, I'm gone. The answers you want are in the WhatsApp on this phone. There's a gift for you in the nightstand drawer." He followed the letter's instructions and opened the drawer. What he saw inside hit him like a thunderbolt. His usually refined face twisted in shock. How could she divorce him and make him give up custody of their child? Serafina Sinclair's phone buzzed. He looked at the familiar profile picture, and his vision went black again. Zara Shaw had sent another provocative message. "Old Lady Sinclair, have you no shame? Didn't you say you'd grant my wish? Why are you still clinging to hubby? Do I have to call hubby over with one phone call for you to finally give up?" His fingers trembled, scrolling relentlessly on the screen. It was filled either with videos of carnal desire or Zara Shaw's provocations. The earliest message was from 2 months ago. He stared at Zara Shaw's messages in disbelief, a bloodthirsty smile appearing on his usually gentle face. So, it was you pulling strings behind the scenes. Zara Shaw, how dare you at the same time? Serafina Sinclair's pre-scheduled divorce announcement was punctually released on social media. It generally stated that she and Julian Carter had separated due to external factors leading to a breakdown in their relationship, and that she would be retiring from public life permanently. It instantly shot to the top of trending topics. Chapter 10, publicly, Julian Carter scrambled to get the trending topic taken down, issuing a statement claiming his wife's account had been hacked and that the published statements were false. Their relationship was strong. Privately, he used every channel available to find Serafina Sinclair's whereabouts. But no matter how hard he searched, she seemed to have vanished into thin air, leaving no trace. His people could only trace her disappearance to Norway. There was no record of her boarding any flight. The world was so vast, finding her was like looking for a needle in a haystack. The thought of her resolute departure cut Julian Carter like a knife. He stayed home, drowning his sorrows in alcohol, letting it numb his nerves so he wouldn't constantly think about her abandoning him, so his heart wouldn't ache so much. Julian Carter became irritable and quick to anger, completely losing his former gentle and amiable demeanor. The maids at home tiptoed around, terrified of accidentally provoking him. As he was drinking sullenly, his phone buzzed. It was a message from Zara Shaw. "Hubby, would you like it if I wore a sailor outfit?" He curled his lip into a cold sneer, his eyes filled with a chilling, murderous intent. In his frantic state, he had almost forgotten this main culprit. But it wasn't too late. When Zara Shaw opened her door, she wasn't met with a man's passionate embrace, but with a hand clamping around her neck. Just as her face turned crimson and she felt she was about to suffocate, the large hand constricting her finally loosened its grip. Her pupils trembled, and she coughed violently, unable to understand how she had provoked him. She tried to use her usual tricks to seduce Julian Carter, but he flung her away, pushing her to the ground. Zara Shaw's face was filled with panic, yet she forced a fawning smile. "Hubby, what's wrong with you?" Julian Carter's eyes were dark and fierce. He advanced on her step by step, his voice so cold it made her tremble. "What's wrong? From the moment I tacitly agreed to this relationship, I told you, a kept woman should behave like one. How dare you send those things to her?" Every word Julian Carter squeezed out through gritted teeth sounded as if he wanted to devour her alive. Zara Shaw's face turned pale, her usual arrogance completely vanished. She realized that her duplicitous actions behind his back might have been exposed, but she could only choose to play dumb. She understood that without a man's favor, she was nothing. Tears welling in her eyes, she crawled to his feet, trying to elicit a shred of pity from him. "Hubby, I don't know what you're talking about. Don't be like this, I'm scared." He knelt on one knee, took out Serafina Sinclair's phone, and found their chat history. His tone was laced with a chilling coldness. "You should remember these then." Zara Shaw's pupils constricted. She hadn't expected Serafina Sinclair's phone to be in Julian Carter's hands. Didn't that mean everything she had done before was completely exposed? This time, she was truly terrified, her teeth chattering. She remembered what Julian Carter had said. If she wanted to be with him, she had to be a proper underground lover. She had thought so too at first, but he had made exceptions for her time and again done so many romantic things for her. The love and tenderness in his eyes had made her fall for him, her heart completely captured. She truly loved the man before her, which was why she had resorted to these underhanded tactics to drive Serafina Sinclair away, leading to her repeated provocations. She clutched his trouser leg, crying pitifully. "Julian, I just love you too much. I just want you to belong to me alone. Love is selfish, is that wrong too?" Julian Carter remained unmoved, as if he were an outsider, feeling even more disgusted by the woman before him. He looked coldly at the beautiful woman, spitting out mocking words. "You think you're worthy of loving me? I only want Ninny's love. From beginning to end, it was just a transaction between us, Zara. You overstepped your bounds." She listened, stunned, her nose tingling, her eyes burning. With a fierce crimson in her eyes, she stared at him. "Is my love so cheap? How am I not worthy of loving you?" Chapter 11, he raised an eyebrow slightly, his voice laced with sarcasm. "It started when you approached me at that banquet, holding a wine glass and spilled wine all over me. I knew what kind of cheap tart you were from the start. You have nothing but a pretty face and no brains. It was always a transaction of money for sex. Seeing as you were obedient, I didn't mind spoiling you a bit. I never thought you'd be so stupid and malicious as to drive my ninny away. You forced her to leave, pregnant with my child, without a backward glance. He pinched her chin, a scarlet hatred glinting in his eyes. I told you long ago not to touch my family. Why did you have to cross my bottom line? Zara Shaw clung desperately to his clothes. Because I love you, I'm jealous that she could win your heart without any effort. She sobbed. Love requires tactics. I just did what any woman crazed with love would do. It was you who repeatedly abandoned Serafina Sinclair to come to me. It was you who proposed to me, giving me hope. If it weren't for your repeated indulgence, your gentleness and thoughtfulness towards me, making me feel that you loved me too, why would I have done those things? I just want to be with you legitimately. What did I do wrong? At this, Zara Shaw seemed to lose her mind, screaming hysterically. He caressed the delicate skin of her neck, wishing he could strangle her on the spot. You disgust me. Since you can't understand plain language, go get treated at a psychiatric hospital. Fear flashed in Zara Shaw's eyes, and she shook her head, tears streaming down her face. No, you can't do this to me. I might be pregnant with your child right now. Yes, they had spent so many nights whispering and cuddling, and he hadn't used protection. She might already be pregnant. Julian Carter raised an eyebrow and sneered, standing up. A child. What kind of fantasy are you living in? Fortunately, he never participated in the family business operations and hadn't revealed his true identity, so it hadn't affected his family's company. When you were getting your cosmetic treatments, I arranged for you to have contraceptive injections. Otherwise, why do you think I didn't use condoms? Did you really think I wanted to have a child with you? I usually just pitied you and played along with your act of wanting a baby. Did you actually take it seriously? Zara Shaw truly broke down this time. So, in Julian Carter's eyes, she was just a plaything to be toyed with at will. What are you still standing there blankly at the door for? Drag her away and send her to the psychiatric hospital. Julian Carter ordered the bodyguards stationed outside the door, his eyes filled with brutal, somber rage. Receiving their boss's command, the bodyguards moved quickly, dragging Zara Shaw up from the floor. Zara Shaw screamed, desperately clinging to the doorframe, begging, "No, Julian Carter, you can't do this to me." But the man who had shared her bed showed none of his former warmth. Now he was more like a demon from hell, wishing she would die immediately. She couldn't accept that she held no place in his heart, hating him for his cruelty. She roared, her eyes blazing, "Julian Carter, you betrayed Serafina Sinclair's genuine heart, and then you betrayed mine. You are destined to never be loved in this life." Julian Carter shot her a final look of utter disgust and ordered the bodyguards, "Knock her out. I don't want to hear her speak again." Day by day, Julian Carter found no clues about Serafina Sinclair. Negative news about him began to surface online. Fans who shipped him with Zara Shaw, who also shipped him with Serafina Sinclair, started to feel something was amiss as they dug deeper. It felt like both brother-in-laws were the same person, especially after some fans recorded the video of Zara Shaw's proposal. The details of the man's hand were identical to Julian Carter's. Combined with Serafina Sinclair's statement a few days earlier, netizens instantly understood. It was confirmed. He was a bona fide scumbag. In an instant, he was caught in a whirlwind of public opinion, becoming the target of widespread condemnation. Chapter 12. Despite his repeated denials and attempts to suppress the news and let it cool down, the public showed no intention of letting him off. As if sensing a goldmine of internet traffic, many influencers and paparazzi targeted him, camping outside his residential complex to live stream. This was great. Young and old, everyone now knew about him. After several weeks of stakeouts without a glimpse of Serafina Sinclair, it proved they had indeed divorced. He was overwhelmed and chose to stay indoors. Julian Carter's carefully cultivated image of a perfect gentleman crumbled overnight. Many business partners, though appreciating his talent, had to cancel collaborations to protect their corporate image after the scandal of his infidelity and divorce was exposed. Fortunately, he never participated in the family business operations and had never revealed his true identity, so it didn't affect the family enterprise. At this time, Serafina Sinclair, living in Northern Europe, was browsing a parenting guide, oblivious to his situation. With the savings she had earned herself, plus the money from selling her assets back home, she was living quite comfortably in Finland. The life here, with 6 months of polar day and 6 months of polar night, was difficult for her to adapt to at first. But she knew people always had to learn to adapt, just like when she first left Julian Carter and felt so uneasy. Now, she could live well on her own. She became a fashion designer. Leveraging years of experience in the fashion industry and her unique vision, she always managed to create innovative designs, gaining favor with some local niche brands. Life was flavorful. One day, as she was strolling down the street as usual, she unexpectedly came face to face with Marcus Sterling. He still had that handsome face, his expression as cool as the last time she remembered seeing him. Serafina, her eyes flickered. She wanted to pretend she didn't know him, but just then the path was slippery, and she nearly fell, only to be caught in a swift embrace by the man. Taking a deep breath, she understood she had missed her best chance to avoid him. "Marcus Sterling, thank you, but please let me go first." She tried to push him away, but his hands only tightened their grip. The man looked down at her jade-like, radiant cheek, chose to hide the storm raging within him, and slowly released her. He told himself not to rush. He had waited for so many years after all. Serafina Sinclair didn't know what was wrong with her. Meeting him was like encountering an old adversary. She could never handle him in the past, and after so many years, she hadn't improved one bit. She blamed it all on the man being too assertive. Otherwise, she wouldn't have chosen a gentle and refined man like Julian Carter. The thought of him brought a tinge of melancholy. Marcus Sterling's appearance had disrupted her peaceful life. He always managed to appear in her line of sight covertly. She wasn't a fool, of course, she knew what he wanted. But he was too cunning, never showing his hand, merely providing perfectly timed assistance in this foreign land. Finally, one day, she ran into him again at a flower shop. She couldn't hold back any longer and spoke first. "Marcus Sterling, what exactly do you want? Do you know I'm pregnant?" "I know, I also know you're divorced." His features were stern, his gaze fixed on her. "Then get rid of it." He said it as casually as commenting on the fine weather. Sometimes Serafina Sinclair had to admit he could always render her speechless with a single sentence. But she was no longer 18, without her youthful willfulness. She said faintly, "The doctor said this might be the only child I'll ever have in my life." She looked down, her hands clutching the sunflower bouquet tightening, only to hear him say nonchalantly, "Then thank God, I'm going to have a child." She was speechless again, feeling her blood rush upwards, making her face hot and flushed. "You're so confident I haven't agreed to anything." A playful smile touched his lips. "The outcome will be the same. I advise you to give up struggling sooner rather than later." Chapter 13, Serafina Sinclair couldn't shake the feeling that Marcus Sterling's usually indifferent eyes now held a touch more warmth. "Otherwise, why would I give up my comfortable life back home and apply for a transfer from headquarters to here?" Under his intense gaze, she was the first to look away, her heart pounding uncontrollably. She wanted to ask him where he got his confidence, but her lips moved, and ultimately she said nothing. After their encounter at the flower shop, they had, in a way, cleared the air. Marcus Sterling no longer hid his intentions and directly bought the villa next to hers, becoming her neighbor. Although he hadn't explicitly stated it, Serafina Sinclair knew in her heart that sometimes you shouldn't just listen to what a man says, but rather observe what he does. These past days, he had accompanied her to prenatal checkups, learned about parenting, and even taken the initiative to cook meals suitable for pregnant women. The obstetrician at the hospital assumed he was her husband. Occasionally, she would glance at his phone and find him researching postpartum care, which inevitably touched her. Yet, she still didn't dare take another step forward. She dared to love, but she was afraid he would regret it. Things were good just as they were now. At 5 a.m, her phone alarm rang on time. Sleepily, she changed her clothes and walked to the door. Marcus Sterling, as promised, appeared punctually at her doorstep. They had arranged 2 days prior to go whale watching together today. For better viewing, Marcus Sterling chartered a small boat. They passed through the pier and sailed into open waters, the sea as clear as a mirror. The sea breeze was much gentler than she had expected. The sun rose, the sea mist dissipated, and the water shimmered with rippling light. They had arrived at the whales' gathering spot. The whales' tails swayed as they swam gently around the boat. Witnessing a whale with its calf swimming so freely at close range softened her heart. She couldn't help but sigh, "I feel like I've wasted the first few decades of my life." Serafina Sinclair shifted her gaze to him, only then realizing he had been silently watching her all along. She joked, "Actually, when you invited me, I didn't want to come at all. Having to get up so early, and it's so cold on the sea, what a pain." But now that she had seen it, a strange feeling arose in her heart. Marcus Sterling's expression remained impassive, but the gentleness in his eyes was evident. Life itself has no meaning. Living in the moment is what's most important. She curved her lips into a smile. Yes, living in the moment was most important. She knew Marcus Sterling was trying to tell her to forget the past unpleasantness. People always had to move forward. She hadn't thought about Julian Carter for a long time. When she first arrived in Finland, she would still pay attention to some news from back home. She saw that her statement on social media had been quickly refuted. Although the reason for the divorce wasn't explicitly stated, the truth couldn't be hidden forever. Soon, news of Julian Carter's affair was exposed. Julian Carter suffered considerable public backlash, and his career took a severe hit. This favored son of heaven was hounded by live streamers at his doorstep, losing all face, and eventually shut himself away from the world. Later, rumors circulated that he had developed depression and had gone abroad to hide. Fans who had shipped him with Zara Shaw felt as disgusted as if they had swallowed a dead fly. After a video surfaced of her at an obstetrics clinic, boasting about having Julian Carter's baby, netizens cursed her for knowingly being the other woman, calling her a filthy strumpet. But she made no response, seemingly disappearing completely from the internet. Serafina Sinclair saw these news items as if they were irrelevant gossip, quickly scrolling past them. These people, these events, seemed to have nothing to do with her. They were no different from strangers. The unforgettable pain they had once brought her had already become a distant yesterday. She didn't care anymore. Chapter 14, she gently caressed her slightly protruding belly. Her child was truly well behaved, never causing her any trouble during the pregnancy. The man silently watching her had eyes full of tenderness, as if that gentle light was about to melt into a pool of spring water. Time flew by, and another year passed. Serafina Sinclair gave birth to a lovely boy. Marcus Sterling was with her in the delivery room. When the nurse placed the baby in his arms, he froze like a plaster sculpture. "He's so ugly. Isn't he fully developed yet? Why does he look like a little monkey? His skin is all wrinkly too. They didn't give us the wrong baby, did they?" That was his first impression of the baby. She watched him frown in deep thought. Though his words were harsh, his hands were gentle and careful. He was so contrary, just like in the old days. Marcus Sterling clearly liked her too, but he stubbornly insisted it was she who liked him. As a new mother, her eyes shone with an unprecedented maternal love. "Bring him over, let me see." Looking at the baby's wrinkled little face, a curve formed on her lips. She found him beautiful in every way. "Have you thought of a name?" Marcus Sterling asked softly. "Leo, let's call him Leo." At first, she used to watch videos of little children. Gradually, her social media feed started showing her many children needing treatment for strange illnesses. She began to overthink. What if the baby had a birthmark? What if he wasn't healthy? What if he wasn't perfectly formed? Fortunately, everything went smoothly. The baby was healthy. She asked for nothing more, only wishing him a healthy upbringing. When Leo was 3 months old, he had a small incident. After dinner, she drank some almond milk. Later, when Leo drank her breast milk, he had an allergic reaction and developed a high fever. Sitting by the hospital bed, she looked at that tiny bundle, an IV needle in his head, whimpering and crying. Her heart felt like it was being torn apart. The doctor's words echoed in her ears. "Where's the child's father? It's the middle of the night. You can't manage alone. It's not safe for you to go back either. Call the baby's dad over quickly, the baby's father." A desolate feeling arose in her heart. Leo's father had been abandoned by her. After some struggle, she still dialed Marcus Sterling's number. The man answered the phone quickly. After understanding the situation, he drove over, keeping the line open the whole way. He heard the fear in her voice. "Serafina, listen to me. I know you're panicking right now, but stay calm until I get from the office to the hospital. You're a mother now. Leo needs you." Marcus Sterling arrived promptly, consulted the doctor, and thankfully, the child was fine. but Leo still had to endure this physical suffering. Perhaps because the child had suddenly fallen ill, Marcus Sterling rarely saw her in such a vulnerable state. In his mind, she had always been a proud, confident, and brave girl. Seeing her red-rimmed eyes and tear-streaked, wan face, his heart ached sharply. He proactively sat beside her, letting her rest her head on his shoulder. He didn't know what to say to comfort her, only letting her vent her emotions. "Don't cry, this isn't your fault." Her voice was hoarse. "I'm an orphan, you know that. More than anyone, I wish Leo could have a complete family, but I never thought I couldn't even ensure his health. I regret it so much. I don't deserve to be a mother at all." "Calm down, this was just an accident." Marcus Sterling frowned, his voice turning cold. "There will be big and small accidents during his growth. If you can't handle this, where did the courage to have him alone come from? You're just an ordinary woman. Don't put so much burden on yourself. Bringing a life into the world alone is already a great feat. Try to rely on me, okay?" Marcus Sterling forced Serafina Sinclair to look into his eyes, saying word by word, "You will be a good mother. Trust me, I will always be with you and Leo." Chapter 15, he tenderly wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes. There. You sleep for a bit. You'll need energy tomorrow to take care of this energetic little guy." He soothed the crying Leo with a gentle voice. Under his protection, Serafina Sinclair gradually emerged from her emotional breakdown, as if she had found her anchor. She slowly felt tired and drifted into a deep sleep. Marcus Sterling stayed by their side, watching over mother and son all night. The next day at noon, Leo's fever completely subsided. Marcus Sterling sent them home and, sitting on the sofa, began to instruct again. "From now on, contact me immediately if something like this happens." Seeing the bloodshot veins in his eyes, she felt guilty and lowered her head. But the man suddenly fell silent as he was speaking. She looked up to see that Marcus Sterling had fallen asleep at some point. She chose not to wake him, instead unconsciously holding Leo and snuggling up beside him. She only felt that when he was by her side, her heart was very much at ease. Reaching out, she gently brushed his stray hair aside. She gazed at his slightly weary face, the dark circles under his eyes, the stubble that had regrown overnight. He looked disheveled, yet she found him more handsome than at any other time. After this incident, their relationship made a new breakthrough. Serafina Sinclair no longer shouldered everything herself. When she needed a helping hand, she would proactively ask. Marcus Sterling would also proactively share things about himself with her, occasionally lingering in her house, acting like a pair of bickering but loving partners. When she tried baking bread at home, she invited Marcus Sterling to be her #1 guinea pig. After tearing off a bite of the dry bread, he refused a second, pushing the loaf far away. He then picked up Leo and started making funny faces. Leo's bright, limpid eyes blinked as he watched the man holding him make all sorts of strange expressions, giggling with delight. "By the way, I'm going back to our home country next week." Serafina heard this and knew it would be for at least some time. An indescribable feeling stirred within her. "Will you come back after you return?" She had unintentionally blurted out her true feelings and was a little annoyed with herself for asking such a brainless question. What was their relationship? Why was she interfering in his life like this? A glint flashed in his eyes and he said playfully, "Of course I'll come back. My wife and child are in Finland. How could I not return?" She glared at him, even giving him a light punch, but it was too soft, like a feather brushing past, making his heart tremble. Marcus Sterling placed Leo in the crib and gently hugged Serafina Sinclair from behind. The woman stiffened for a moment, but didn't resist, silently accepting the embrace. He whispered in her ear, "Wait for me, it won't even take a week. Once I finish the business negotiations back home, I'll come back to be with you and Leo." The man's usually stern features softened. He joked, "While I'm not around, you can't be thinking about other men." Who could she be thinking about? Julian Carter? She hadn't thought about his news in a long time. He felt distant to her now. They had long been two people with no connection. She gritted her teeth. "What nonsense are you talking about? Believe it or not, I'll tear your mouth apart." "Oh no, the supermodel has turned into a shrew." Serafina. Marcus Sterling returned to their home country, rested for a day to adjust to the time difference, and then immediately threw himself into his work schedule. Today was the day he was signing a contract with Victoria Carter. He arrived at the Carter Group headquarters and once again met this decisive and powerful business queen. However, she clearly seemed somewhat distracted. Thinking about the mess her brother had made, she wished she could send him back to be remade. Inside the Carter family villa, Zara Shaw stayed nervously in Julian Carter's bedroom, terrified he might suddenly lose control. Her voice trembled. "Julian, eat something, please. You haven't eaten all day. Can you do your wood carving after you've eaten?" Chapter 16, however, the man remained engrossed in his task, completely ignoring her. After being locked up in the psychiatric hospital, she thought she would never get out. Unexpectedly, less than 2 days later, she met a cold and ruthless female executive, Julian Carter's older sister. Victoria Carter wasn't interested in the scandalous affair between her and her brother, but she had to prevent any adverse factors that could potentially harm the company. What Julian Carter had done was no different from illegal detention. What if a rival discovered it and reported it? Was the family to produce a convict starting from this generation? Thus, Zara Shaw was fortunately rescued by Victoria Carter. She never wanted to go back to that place again. There were too many abnormal people there, and she couldn't understand their behavior. She only knew that if she stayed any longer, she would soon become like them. Having learned of the Carter family's extensive power and influence, she no longer dared to play her little tricks. After all, such schemes were nothing in the eyes of Victoria Carter, who had weathered many storms. Victoria Carter had saved her and was willing to support her for life, but she also had conditions. Take care of her brother, behave herself, and no longer appear in public. Zara Shaw understood. As a woman, her reputation was ruined, her life was over. What more could she ask for when such a powerful family was willing to support her? Victoria Carter didn't want to hear any more negative news about Julian Carter. He was, after all, her biological brother, 12 years her junior. She had watched him grow up. In her eyes, Julian Carter was still like a child. Since Zara Shaw had successfully seduced Julian Carter, Victoria Carter believed she must have some extraordinary qualities. Victoria hoped she could make Julian fall in love with her and forget Serafina Sinclair. That cold woman had only said Julian Carter was ill, but she hadn't mentioned he had bipolar disorder. Now, he was visibly getting worse. She was terrified of him now. If he suddenly attempted suicide again, she wouldn't be able to clear her name even if she had countless mouths. Victoria would only blame her for being useless. Marcus Sterling noticed Victoria Carter's low spirits and tentatively asked, "Something on your mind?" She waved her hand, pretending it was just that time of the month, and changed the subject. "By the way, how much longer do you plan to stay single? You're about to become a prime eligible bachelor." He deliberately tapped the table with his knuckle. "Hold it right there. I might just be off the market in a few days." Victoria Carter teased, "Didn't you say you'd only love your first love in this lifetime? So, you've finally moved on, tusk. Marcus Sterling's eyebrow twitched. Seeing his expression, she raised her voice. "You're not actually going to end up with your first love, are you?" The poacher finally got his prize. Marcus Sterling frowned. Indeed, a woman's curiosity for gossip knows no age. "But you had it really rough back then. Suddenly whisked off to Africa by the old man for training, no news at all. The girl thought you'd abandoned her. Then, just as she gets married, you reappear? What a tragic tale." The light in your eyes was gone, like a walking corpse. He didn't want to hear her teasing anymore and deliberately changed the subject. "Where's Julian? Haven't heard from him in ages." At the mention of Julian Carter, the woman's smiling lips pressed into a thin line. "He's at home, losing his mind." Ever since Serafina Sinclair left, he went through a round of online attacks, and he's just been in a daze. Marcus Sterling looked down, a dark glint flashing in his eyes, and tugged at the corner of his mouth. "If you knew this would happen, why did you do it in the first place?" He felt no pity for this old acquaintance. He had already lost Serafina Sinclair once. This time, he wouldn't give anyone a chance. Victoria Carter continued, "He's had a smooth life. This incident must have hit him too hard." But who can he blame? Chapter 17. If I were his wife, I would have cut ties with him long ago. Serafina, in the end, is still a dignified person. Through his chat with Victoria Carter, Marcus Sterling learned that Julian Carter was suffering from bipolar disorder, fluctuating between depression and irritability. Julian Carter, in his current state, was completely unfit to be seen by anyone. He was practically a wreck. He would periodically attempt suicide by cutting his wrists and would frequently demand to go overseas to find Serafina Sinclair. In his current mental state, who would dare let him go out alone? A buzzing sound vibrated. Victoria Carter answered the call, her face instantly turning deathly pale. She gritted her teeth and said, "What kind of job are the caretakers doing? How did Julian manage to jump from the second floor?" Marcus Sterling's eyes turned dark and somber. He said nothing, merely taking a sip of his tea. He's really trying to kill himself. He sent a message to Serafina Sinclair. "Your ex-hubby has new updates." Soon, Serafina Sinclair replied with a series of quotation marks. He briefly explained the incident. Serafina, holding her phone, fell silent for a moment before replying. "His affairs have nothing to do with me. If a person doesn't even cherish themselves, who else will cherish them? Don't tell me about his matters anymore." Marcus Sterling casually curled his lip. That was for the best. He had only wanted to test Serafina Sinclair's attitude. Seeing her so resolute, it seemed Julian Carter had no hope in this lifetime. He owed Julian Carter nothing. They had only some acquaintance in the past, which was why he hadn't acted aggressively to steal her away. But things were different now. Julian Carter had lost Serafina Sinclair himself, so he couldn't blame Marcus for seizing this sole opportunity. He was merely defending his one and only love. When Julian Carter's incident occurred, Victoria Carter was in no mood to discuss collaborations and rushed to the hospital. As his former brother, how could Marcus Sterling not go? Seeing Zara Shaw kneeling in the hospital, terrified Victoria Carter was too angry to speak. She was so furious she almost ground her teeth to dust. "Get up, you truly are an embarrassment. Who allowed you to go out? If the media catches you, what kind of story will they write?" Victoria Carter rubbed her temples, weariness filling her heart. Her brother was completely ruined. "I'm sorry, I was too scared." Zara Shaw sobbed silently. "I don't know how, but he suddenly heard the word child and started going frantic. He opened the window and just jumped." "I was really terrified," Zara Shaw's voice choked. Marcus Sterling glanced at her. She exuded an air of exhaustion. She must have suffered greatly at the hands of the Carter family these days. Marcus Sterling had never been a particularly good person. Knowing Julian Carter wasn't dead was enough for him. The rest had nothing to do with him. Once this project was on track, he would fly back to Finland. It had only been a few days since he parted from Serafina, and he was already impatient to see her. But unexpectedly, it took him over 2 months to return to Finland. Serafina Sinclair came to pick him up with the baby. For a moment, he truly felt like a family of 3. Noticing she was struggling a bit to hold Leo, he took Leo from her arms, lifting him high and making him laugh. "Stop teasing him, he's about to laugh himself silly." Serafina Sinclair chided, lightly patting his shoulder. They exchanged a smile, the image of him holding the baby incredibly heartwarming. A photographer spotted the scene of him lifting the baby high, captured a shot of the baby's blissful laugh, and wanted to take another photo of the family of 3. But unfortunately, they walked away too quickly, and he missed the chance. The photographer uploaded the photo to his social media account. The baby's healing smile instantly attracted a wave of mommy fans and unexpectedly went viral. Many fans asked the photographer where he had taken the picture of the baby, saying he was too cute. Chapter 18, the photographer also replied. In the villa, Theodore Carter Sr., scrolling through his phone, adjusted his reading glasses. A thought flickered in his mind. Was he seeing things? This baby's little face, it was the spitting image of his good-for-nothing son when he was young. Theodore Carter Sr. called over Margaret Carter. "Look, who does this photo look like?" Margaret Carter looked closely, then said doubtfully, "This looks exactly like Julian. Does he have an illegitimate child outside?" At this thought, both their expressions turned sour. The matter eventually reached Victoria Carter's ears. Victoria Carter had a faint suspicion. This was probably the child her former sister-in-law had given birth to. Neither she nor Julian Carter had mentioned Serafina Sinclair's pregnancy to their parents. She was afraid the old folks would be angered to death by that rascal, and Julian probably felt ashamed. His wife and child had both run away. Thinking of her brother, still listless and without a will to live in the hospital, Victoria Carter felt a surge of anger and frustration. But she couldn't just watch him wallow like mud. She went to the hospital and chose to tell Julian Carter this news herself. Inside the villa, Marcus Sterling was sitting on the sofa, watching an educational cartoon with Leo feeling drowsy. A phone call came in. Hearing the news, his sleepiness vanished entirely, his face turning as dark as ink. Serafina Sinclair saw his grave expression, thought something had happened to him, and was about to speak. But he stood up and walked towards her. "Serafina, he knows about Leo's existence. A photographer took Leo's picture at the airport. I'm afraid your location might not be a secret for much longer." Her eyelashes trembled. Sensing Serafina Sinclair's unease, he pulled her into his embrace, gently patting her back. "It's okay, I'm here. He's injured now and still in the hospital. He probably can't get out." Marcus Sterling casually brushed over Julian Carter's injuries. He had inquired. That jump had resulted in several fractures and a ruptured kidney. A cold glint flashed in his eyes. If he really came, Marcus wasn't afraid, he only feared she would waver. As it stood, Julian Carter couldn't come anyway. If he kept this up, his little life would soon be over. Serafina Sinclair said nothing more. She enjoyed her current peaceful life and hadn't thought about Julian Carter for a very, very long time. What would happen if they met? She had nothing to say to him. Everything that could be said was said on the day she left. For the rest of her life, she would have no contact with him. She lay by the bed, coaxing Leo to sleep. Marcus Sterling watched over mother and son, his heart filled with tenderness. Back in their home country, the man who had been lying listlessly on the hospital bed, devoid of any will to live, now had a spark in his eyes. But in his current weak state, he couldn't even leave the hospital. However, to Victoria Carter, none of this mattered. She just wanted him to have the will to live. From the day Serafina Sinclair left, he lived every day in agony. He asked himself over and over, didn't she love him too? How could she leave him so cruelly? They had a child together. Even if bones were broken, they were still connected by flesh and blood. Huddled at home, he constantly numbed himself. Only by lying in their room, smelling the familiar scent, could he find a moment's peace. It was as if she were still by his side, had never left. But waking up brought an even more severe breakdown. Under this mental torture, he fluctuated between euphoria and depression. He let himself lose control, understood he was sick, but being sick was fine too. Maybe if she knew, she would feel sorry for him. What if she came back to find him? The truth was, she never contacted him. He lived like a walking corpse, submerged in his own world day after day. Now he knew she was in Finland and had given birth to his child. That heart, which had been waiting to die, came alive again. Chapter 19, he had found hope again. He had to find her and their child. He wanted to remarry her, to reconcile and be as they were before. Victoria Carter saw his expression and immediately understood his thoughts, sighing softly. If only he had known then, why did he have to do it? Julian, get well first. Look at yourself now. How much of your former self is left? Any woman who saw you would be scared away. Victoria Carter just hoped he could pull himself together. She couldn't bear to see him so dejected anymore. "Sis, do you think she'll forgive me? Do I still have a chance?" She didn't speak, just nodded silently. Although she understood that a woman like Serafina Sinclair, unwilling to compromise, would absolutely not turn back, she couldn't say it. She had finally managed to spark his will to live. She was frustrated by his lack of fight, but they were, after all, family. If it were any other man, she would only think the scumbag deserved it, that it was all his own doing. The heart is ultimately biased. She comforted him softly. Rest well. Only when you've recovered will you have a chance. Victoria Carter gave a few more instructions, told someone to take good care of him, and then turned to leave. Lying in the hospital bed, he could no longer bear it and shed tears of remorse. He pulled the blanket over himself, curling up in a corner of the bed, completely covered. "Ninny, I miss you so much." His voice choked. He had personally ruined the girl he had cherished in the palm of his hand. For him, she had ended her career in its golden age, just so they could be together forever, no longer enduring the pain of separation. Serafina Sinclair truly cared about their relationship, but his momentary infatuation with Zara Shaw had thrown their lives into complete disarray. Zara Shaw was bold and uninhibited in bed, always managing to stir his passion. With her, he experienced something completely different. The feeling of being able to play with her as he pleased, unlike the careful cherishing he showed Ninny. He was the dominant one in bed. Besides, Zara Shah's body was indeed enticing, and he was willing to spoil this little mistress, which was why he had proposed to her to make her happy. In any case, she should have understood. From the beginning of their relationship, he had said he only loved his wife. But he was also obsessed with the excitement Zara Shah brought him. He only desired her body, nothing more. He thought he could enjoy the best of both worlds, maintaining a balance between home and outside, but he overlooked Zara Shah's greed and Serafina Sinclair's decisiveness. Everything was ruined. His wife disappeared with their unborn child. In one day, he lost his love. In the small town in Finland, Serafina Sinclair looked at the love bites scattered all over her body, cursing inwardly. Alcohol and lust are truly corrupting. Just last night, she and Marcus Sterling had an intimate encounter. Rubbing her aching waist, she couldn't resist kicking the man sleeping soundly beside her, his arms around her. Recalling last night, they had been admiring the northern lights at home, had a little too much to drink, and both became somewhat overwhelmed by desire. Her nerves relaxed, she leaned against Marcus Sterling. His Adam's apple bobbed, and he tentatively leaned in and kissed her soft lips. She was a bit stunned for a moment and didn't resist, tacitly allowing the kiss. Afterwards, the man became even bolder, and things escalated uncontrollably. The image of him in bed, his eyes slightly narrowed like a predatory leopard, directly gripping the nape of her neck and pinning her beneath him, unable to move, flooded her mind again. Her cheeks flushed red. She intended to get up and ignore the man in bed, but Marcus Sterling stretched out a long arm and swiftly wrapped it around her waist. "Eat your fill and run, huh?" He had just woken up, his voice carrying an indescribable desire and hoarseness. Her ears began to burn, and her heartbeat quickened. Chapter 20, this rogue she pushed him away, only to be pulled back into his embrace and kissed again. The kiss started gently, but as he sensed her yielding, Marcus Sterling's kisses became fiercer, irresistible. Their tongues intertwined, their bodies merged once more. Afterwards, she was coaxed back to sleep by the man. In a sleepy haze, she noticed he was already up, holding Leo and preparing formula. Suddenly, she realized her life was already inseparable from this man. Marcus Sterling came over again, gently stroking her cheek. "Darling, sleep a little longer." After this incident, Marcus Sterling had practically taken root in her house, acting very much like the man of the house, and at night, he would press her down on the bed for his pleasure. He seemed unchanged. When she first met him in her youth, he had a cold, aloof demeanor. Serafina Sinclair's colleagues had made a bet with her, saying Marcus Sterling looked like a celibate old cadre, exuding an icy aura, probably impotent. She didn't believe it. During a catwalk show, she threw a seductive glance at the man in the audience. With just one look, she saw the hidden flames deep in Marcus Sterling's eyes. How was this impotent? Serafina Sinclair triumphantly corrected her colleague backstage, saying her judgment was wrong. Unexpectedly, Marcus Sterling called her into the dressing room and greeted her with a forceful, domineering kiss. From then on, she was entangled with this adversary for a full 2 years. Hugging the man's lean, strong waist, her pupils trembled. She patted her cheeks. This wasn't impotent, this was too potent. It was truly baffling how he managed to balance work and life, possessing so much energy every day, leaving her sore and weak-limbed from his exertions. On the weekend, she wanted to laze in bed, but he coaxed her out from under the covers, insisting on taking her king crab fishing. They took a cruise ship, but he ended up taking her and the baby to Hardingerfjord. Although it was near the Arctic Circle, it was a rare, mild, and humid place. The low peaks on both sides of the fjord meandered, mist filled the air, and the scenery on both banks was rendered tender and charming by the hazy waters. Feeling a sense of wonder, she asked, "Weren't we going king crab fishing?" He teased, "I'm not crazy. Leo is so small, what if he catches a cold? We're going to my winery. It's the blooming season now, you'll definitely like it." With that, he naturally helped her tidy her stray hairs and adjust her collar. "Go back to the room, we still have a while before we arrive." When they arrived at the estate, she had assumed it produced wine, but it turned out to be apple cider. The trees were laden with blossoms, their fragrance delicate, surrounded by bees and butterflies. She was surprised to find such a paradise so close to the Arctic Circle. Just standing there for a moment, her dress was perfumed with an enchanting fragrance. Leo also stared with his big, round eyes, babbling excitedly, looking very happy. She tugged Marcus Sterling's sleeve and asked, "When did you acquire this estate?" The smile on the man's lips faded, tinged with a hint of loneliness. He said slowly, "After you got married. I thought I had missed my chance, that there would be no more opportunities. Later, I developed a drinking problem. I was planning to find a place to drink myself into oblivion. The cider here has a unique taste. When I first bought it, it was just to pass the lonely time. I originally thought I'd live here when I became an old man, that this would be my life. It's different now, you've come back to me." For a moment, a multitude of flavors, both bitter and sweet, flooded her heart. Her voice trembled as she gently linked her arm with his. "I'll always be here from now on." He lowered his head and kissed her smooth forehead. "In the future, an old lady will be here with me." She was exasperated into a laugh by him, not noticing that he had discreetly slipped a ring onto her finger. "Trapped by me? You can't run away now." The man's voice was somewhat choked. She looked at his usually indifferent eyes, now tinged with a faint red, and for the first time, she proactively kissed those thin lips. Chapter 21, falling in love with him, just like in her youth, was the simplest thing. She never imagined that on an ordinary weekend, Marcus Sterling would wake her up, take her to a pastoral estate for cider tasting, and propose to her completely unprepared. Yet her heart bloomed like a flower. This was so typical of his style. He only appeared cold on the surface, but deep down, he was wilder than anyone. He wasn't necessarily gentle, but he always managed to give her a profound sense of security. Since Serafina Sinclair had already accepted his proposal, she naturally had to meet his parents, relatives, and friends. After some preparation, the two of them finally embarked on their journey back to their home country. It went much better than Serafina Sinclair had expected. Marcus Sterling's family was more accepting of him than she could have imagined. Her sister-in-law was humorous and very talkative. From her, she learned that Marcus Sterling had a first love in his youth, but due to various reasons and unfortunate coincidences, they were not fated to be together, leading him to years of melancholy, focusing on his career and remaining single. Now that he was willing to get married, even if he had said he wanted to find a man, the family would probably have agreed. Marcus Sterling had never mentioned how he had spent these years. Hearing it now from his sister-in-law was even more shocking. At night, lying in the man's arms, her fingers gently traced his features, her eyes welling up. He thought he had hurt her and licked away the teardrop from the corner of her eye, his voice husky. "Why are you crying? Did I hurt you somewhere?" "Let me take a look." She just shook her head. "Why did you never tell me about what happened all these years?" He froze for a moment, then understood. He merely kissed the corner of her lips and said faintly, "It was too painful, and it has no meaning anymore. I only live in the present. The past is all in the past." Meanwhile, Julian Carter, who had just recovered physically, was still living in the past, unwilling to wake up. He learned from Victoria Carter that Serafina Sinclair was getting married, and the groom-to-be was someone he knew, Marcus Sterling, the most praised among their generation. He wanted to find her, to tell her he still loved her, not to get married. But Victoria Carter had bodyguards stationed at the hospital 24/7, not allowing him to leave. "Please, sis, let me see her," he begged. Victoria Carter laughed in exasperation. "She's getting married. What's an ex-husband like you going to see her for? Aren't you embarrassed enough? Look at yourself now, all skin and bones. Seeing you would only increase her dislike for you." He still managed to find a way to leave the hospital, secretly taking a car to watch her from a distance, seeing her walking hand in hand with another man on the street. Her eyes were bright and captivating. Her smile radiated her current joy. He then glanced at his own reflection in a glass window. Gaunt, gloomy, so thin he looked like a patient who had escaped from a hospital. After just a few minutes, the desire to see Serafina Sinclair lost its courage. His expression darkened as he instructed the driver, "Back to the hospital." His sister was right. At least he couldn't appear like this. She wouldn't like it. Marcus Sterling's eyes narrowed, glancing at the car that had been following them. It had left. A cold smile touched his lips. Sensible enough. Late at night, Marcus Sterling went to the hospital alone. Glancing at Julian Carter, who was sitting dazedly on the bed, he said indifferently, "You look much better than the last time you were in the hospital." Julian Carter looked up numbly. "Here to laugh at me? Is there a need for that? You've been a laughingstock for a long time now, ever since your affair became public knowledge." Julian Carter tugged at his lips, a bitter taste rising in his heart. His life, his marriage, had shattered at that moment. He had indeed become a joke. He blinked, suppressing the pain, and said coldly, "What brings you here?" Marcus Sterling stated his purpose for coming. "We've known each other for a while, doctor. From now on, I don't want you appearing before my wife." Chapter 22, his face turned deathly pale, and he gritted his teeth. "Do I not even have the right to see her once?" "Right," Marcus Sterling sneered. His already stern features became even more terrifying at this moment. "Those who break their vows will lose their greatest love forever. And you still fantasize about having rights?" Julian Carter's heart jolted. All the words he wanted to say were caught in his throat. His head was roaring. Even breathing became difficult. It took a great effort for him to finally speak. "She told you that too? I am her man. What is there that I should know?" After speaking, Marcus Sterling turned and left. He had never been a kind person. He usually just hid his dark side in a corner. Now that someone was threatening his happiness, he would absolutely not give his rival a chance. That would be cruel to himself. Marcus Sterling's unexpected visit shattered Julian Carter's last illusion. For the next few days, he would often sit on the hospital bed with a blank expression, sometimes laughing, sometimes crying, his emotions a tangled mess. He was getting sicker. After being transferred to a sanatorium, Victoria Carter arranged for Zara Shaw to come and keep him company. Zara now tended to him like an old nanny. Their lives were both ruined. Zara now just wanted to latch onto a powerful family and get as much money as possible. She couldn't make it on the outside. Her name was mud, reviled by everyone. If she could have left, she would have long ago. When his consciousness was unclear, he would gently call her Ninny, and she would just respond numbly. One day, in a corridor corner, she secretly overheard Victoria Carter talking to the Carter parents on the phone. She gathered that Mrs. Carter had come up with a terrible idea. Perhaps if Julian Carter got married and had another child, his condition would improve. An idea spread like wildfire in her mind. Wasn't this her best chance to secure her position with the Carter family? Though she no longer loved Julian Carter, she still loved money. By her calculations, the effect of her contraceptive injections had also worn off. When he was once again confused and mistook her for Serafina Sinclair, she gave Julian Carter some medication, and they slept together. Not long after, she experienced signs of pregnancy and confronted Victoria Carter. She only received a sarcastic remark, "You're quite something." In any case, all Victoria Carter needed to do was fulfill her parents' wishes. In her brother's current state, what decent girl would want him? So, she arranged for him and Zara Shaw to get registered for marriage. Zara Shaw continued to accompany Julian Carter, though her treatment now was much better. When he was disoriented, she would continue to impersonate Serafina Sinclair. She told him he was going to be a father. The man's joyful expression reminded her of their sweet past, and once again, as they became intimate in the hospital bed, Zara Shaw's bold advances made him feel something was wrong. "You're not Ninny. She wouldn't play these kinds of games." "Who are you? Tell me who you are." Zara Shaw was violently choked, nearly suffocating to death. It was Victoria Carter's sudden arrival that saved her life. Seeing them disheveled, anyone could immediately understand what had happened. Victoria slapped Zara Shaw instantly. "What, tired of a stable life? So insatiable, want me to send you to work as a prostitute?" Zara Shaw immediately shook her head in terror, promising she would never dare again. Something dramatic happened. After this turmoil, Julian Carter's consciousness actually cleared. He looked at Zara Shaw's swollen belly, remembered the foolish things he had done recently, and his heart turned bitter. When Zara Shaw came to his room again, he said wearily, "What do you really want? Money, a house, I can give them to you. This child, I don't want it." He already had a child. What did one born to Zara Shaw count for? Chapter 23, unexpectedly, Theodore and Margaret Carter learned of this and vehemently disagreed, forcing him with filial piety to keep the child. Julian Carter's wishes no longer mattered. Perhaps because he was ruined, his family no longer cared about his desires. Everything from before was just fleeting smoke. He finally bowed his head and complied with the family's arrangements. For a time, he reverted to the refined gentleman he once was. His attitude towards Zara Shaw also gradually softened, but his heart grew more desperate with each passing day. On a clear, sunny day, he leaped from a tall building, his body shattering upon impact. His will stipulated that all his assets were to be given to Serafina Sinclair and her son. Julian Carter was dead, and Zara Shaw lost her value. As soon as the child was born, Victoria Carter took it away, not even giving Zara a chance to see it. The Carter family blamed Julian Carter's death on Zara Shaw. If she hadn't seduced Julian and gotten pregnant, how could he have been driven to his death? Her financial support was cut off. Whenever she appeared in public, she was mocked and insulted, unable to find work. Someone once saw her in a red light district. After that, there was no more news of her. When Serafina Sinclair, in Finland, heard news of the two again, she felt a wave of sorrow. How had it come to this? She and Julian Carter had parted on relatively good terms. Even if they never saw each other again in this life, she had thought they could at least both be well. How had it turned into this tragic scene? Flying back to her home country again, it was for a final farewell. She led Leo to Julian Carter's tombstone. In the photo, he was still as handsome as she remembered, his smile warm and gentle, like a spring breeze touching one's heart. Leo fiddled with his fingers, asking like a curious baby, "Mommy, who is this uncle?" Her throat felt blocked, her eyes reddening. It took her a long while to choke out, "He's Daddy." Leo's little head tilted. He couldn't understand. Wasn't Daddy waiting for them at the foot of the mountain? How was Daddy here too? Serafina Sinclair tried hard to tilt her head up to stop her tears from falling, but they stubbornly welled up and overflowed. "Leo, say goodbye to Daddy." Teaching Leo to bow 3 times, she stood there in silence for a long time. In a daze, she was transported back to that year when she was 19. Dressed in a backless red gown, she walked the tea stage like a blooming, fiery rose. Julian Carter, invited by the organizers as a designer, had inadvertently glanced her way and was utterly captivated. A fleeting glimpse, and from then on, love took deep root. From then on, he never missed a show she was in, sending her countless roses. Juliet, Louis XIV, Greenlight, Neptune all were politely declined. She had seen him dejected, troubled, and completely baffled. She had seen him slowly try to understand her preferences. She had casually mentioned liking emeralds just to make him give up, never expecting him to bid for an entire set of jewelry to gift to her. She had seen him design a unique love nest villa for her, watched him point at the blueprints with a smile, telling her they would have many children. In their most loving year, he had thrown her a spectacular fairy tale wedding. Until she received the information of Julian Carter's infidelity, and her trust in him shattered. She changed her name, left decisively. They dated, fell in love, married. She thought they would spend their lives together, never imagining it would end with them parting ways. In just a few short years, a maelstrom of love, hate, and countless emotions, she had experienced them all with this man. This time, it's really goodbye. She silently placed a bouquet of white chrysanthemums, put on her sunglasses, and led Leo's small hand away. At the foot of the mountain, Marcus Sterling sat in the car, his expression impassive, but his gaze was fixed on the path leading down. The way his knuckles kept flexing as he gripped the steering wheel betrayed his inner turmoil. Only when 2 figures, one large and one small, gradually became clear in the distance did his heart finally settle. Chapter 24, pushing open the car door, he rose and strode towards Serafina Sinclair, scooping Leo into his arms with one hand and taking her hand with the other. The icy touch of her palm conveyed her state. Marcus Sterling said nothing, merely placing Leo in the child's safety seat and then silently rubbing her fingers. "I told you, I'd accompany you and Leo. Why are you so stubborn?" Marcus Sterling was met with a silent sigh. Her eyes were filled with an emptiness that pained him deeply. "Mark, let's go. I don't want to stay here any longer." Her past with Julian Carter was truly over. Julian Carter's death still cast a shadow over her heart. On Serafina Sinclair's 3rd day back in the country, she received a call from Victoria Carter. She asked to meet at a private cafe. In Serafina's mind, Victoria Carter had always been a capable and beautiful sister-in-law. She just wasn't sure what this meeting was about. When they met, Victoria Carter handed her a document folder. Serafina Sinclair was puzzled. "This is the assets Julian left for you and Leo," Victoria Carter stated directly. She reached out and pushed the folder back to its original place, replying faintly, "Sis, I'm sorry, I can't accept this." When she left the country years ago, she had sold off enough assets, many of which were expensive, grand gifts from Julian Carter at the time, enough to provide for her and Leo for a lifetime. She had sold them then with a clear conscience, but what was this inheritance about? Besides, he has another child, doesn't he? She looked down, her fingers stirring her coffee, unconsciously clenching. His money should go to that child. Leo has everything. That child has never seen its parents since birth. I will not accept this money, no matter what. The matter of the inheritance was eventually dropped. Victoria Carter made another request, for Leo to meet his grandparents. Serafina Sinclair agreed. Leo was, after all, of Carter blood. She wasn't so cold-hearted as to prevent two elderly people who had just mourned their son from seeing their biological grandson. A few days later, she took Leo to the Carter family's ancestral home. The moment Margaret Carter saw Leo, Serafina noticed her eyes reddening. Leo sat on the sofa, curiously looking around, thoroughly fascinated. That one, like, his chubby little hand pointed to an architectural model on a shelf. Victoria Carter couldn't help but smile. Leo is just like his father. That was Julian's award-winning piece from a youth architecture competition. Victoria Carter continued, "Leo, how about becoming an architect in the future?" Serafina Sinclair's pupils trembled. She gently stroked her son's hair. He was still too young to understand what an architect was, so he asked with a puzzled expression. She just told him it was someone very capable. Margaret Carter couldn't help but remark, "Leo is a spitting image of Julian when he was little, like nesting dolls." "Grandma adores you so." Leo giggled. In the house, she saw another baby still in swaddling clothes. A sense of sadness touched her heart. She knew what it was like to grow up without parents. Her grievances with Julian Carter had ended with their divorce. She wouldn't take her anger out on this little baby. She just felt sorry for the child. Fortunately, he was born into a wealthy family. He would likely live a life free of worry. Having fulfilled Victoria Carter's request and promising to bring Leo to see his grandparents every year, Serafina Sinclair had no more ties in her home country and boarded a flight back to Finland. This trip back left her listless and drained of energy. Marcus Sterling didn't say anything, but his concern for her health was visibly apparent. Chapter 25, until she felt genuinely unwell and Marcus Sterling insisted on taking her to the hospital. Hearing the doctor's diagnosis, both of them were stunned. The doctor, as usual, gave instructions. 4.5 weeks pregnant. Pay attention to your health during this period. Don't overexert yourself. She couldn't register the rest of his words. Only one sentence echoed in her mind. Pregnant. She turned to look at Marcus Sterling. His innately cool and indifferent features made him appear very calm, but if his cheek muscles weren't twitching, it would be hard to detect his excitement. On the way back, he curved his lips into a smile and murmured, "Going to be a dad again." He teased, the parenting guides weren't studied in vain. He began another busy period as a doting father. A warmth spread through Serafina Sinclair's heart. Her inner turmoil was no less than Marcus Sterling's. She had once thought she would never have another child in this lifetime. During her days recuperating at home, Leo would lie on her belly, feeling the arrival of a new life. "Ah, Mommy, it's moving. Was I like this too, in Mommy's tummy?" She smiled and nodded. The family happily anticipated the arrival of the new life. During this time, Marcus Sterling became even busier. When she was pregnant with Leo, he only had to take care of Serafina. Now, he was taking care of two, and also considering their little baby. She once felt guilty for not being able to give Marcus Sterling a child. Fate always seemed to be playing jokes on them. In her youth, Marcus Sterling had disappeared without a trace. She thought he was just playing with her, cruelly betraying her love. When he returned, it was at her wedding. He didn't explain much, leaving behind a dejected figure as he departed. Who would have thought that after all the twists and turns, they would still end up together? After 10 months of pregnancy, Serafina Sinclair gave birth to another lovely boy. Leo lay beside the bassinet, staring intently at the little baby. Once Serafina Sinclair's body recovered, Marcus Sterling once again proposed to hold a make-up wedding ceremony. At first, Serafina Sinclair was resistant. A wedding held little meaning for her anymore. She was a mature woman, not a starry-eyed girl. Serafina, but I want everyone to know you are my wife. I want to see you in a white wedding dress. You'll look so beautiful." Her heart was touched. She had overlooked Marcus Sterling's feelings. For him, this was his first marriage. He must be looking forward to his wedding. Ultimately, she silently nodded, agreeing to the makeup ceremony. On a bright morning, they held an outdoor wedding on a green lawn. The moment Serafina Sinclair appeared in a white wedding gown, followed by Leo as a little page boy, his eyes overflowed with deep love for both of them. "Mr. Marcus Sterling, do you take?" Before the officiant could finish, Marcus Sterling eagerly answered, "I do." The guests were stunned for a second, then the scene erupted in laughter. At this moment, Marcus Sterling had none of his former calm composure. Seeing the glint of tears in his eyes, her own eyes couldn't help but moisten. Loving is easy, staying together is hard. After stumbling through half a lifetime, it turned out he was still there, waiting for her. "Thank you for never giving up on me. Thank you for giving me and Leo a home." She wasn't a sentimental person, but today, for some reason, tears kept falling from her eyes. He just shook his head, gently wiping away her tears with his thumb. "It is I who should thank you for giving me a chance. My wife, I love you." At night, accompanied by the man's muffled groan, she was left completely limp from his exertions, held tightly in Marcus Sterling's embrace. In a hazy state of consciousness, she felt him kissing her cheek. The days ahead were long. Together, they would witness their children's growth, taking them to see the world. They were both changing. The only thing that remained unchanged was their love for each other.